26 participants. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly at 11:05 I'll start.
Yeah.
Before that, I would give my usual instructions to all. So before I start, I'll just give the instructions to all the participants, and then I will call upon Mr. Ajit Mangrulkar to give the welcome address. Okay, sir?
So can I mute my?
Yes, because I'll be controlling from here, so not an issue. So all are requested to please switch on to speaker view and not the gallery view, so that you get the best output from this seminar, and you are able to concentrate and listen to all these speakers. So may I request all of you all to move on to the speaker view, which is on the right hand upper corner of your screen. The participants are requested to put their videos on off mode and to mute themselves so that there are no disturbances when the seminar is on. I will be muting all. Ganeshanji will be taking the questions at the end of the session, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so then I will be forcefully muting everybody, and when the speaker is supposed to speak, I'll be unmuting them so that there are no disturbances and the seminar goes on smoothly. Okay, so I am now putting everybody on mute all, and when the question answer session comes, I'll give you the choice to unmute yourselves. Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
So a very warm welcome to all the speakers, dignitaries, and the participants to the seminar on COVID-19 and market outlook of agricultural commodities. As we start the session, may I request Mr. Ajit Mangrulkar, Director General, IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to present the welcome address to all. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Selby, and a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are all looking very hopeful and positive outlook. I think there's no other way but to have a positive outlook. And on behalf of IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I welcome you to this online seminar on a very interesting topic, COVID-19 and the market outlook of agricultural commodities. The outbreak of COVID-19 and the subsequent lockdown globally, and especially in India, has sparked a huge economic crisis, which threatens to induce a recessionary environment. Its impact on agriculture, as we all know, is complex and varied across diverse segments that form the agricultural value chain. The basic necessity of life, roti, kapda, and makan, presently under the current crisis, the top priority is food for all of mankind, and we see this across the globe. Queues outside grocery stores, outside essential stores, and both the central and state governments are taking various measures to ensure that the crop harvesting, logistics, and warehousing activities are not unduly impacted. And as we started off, we said that yes, food is coming to the plate. The issue is of money, not so much of food, but of course, our discussion will shed more light on this. Agriculture is an important aspect of Indian economy. In fact, agriculture is what we call the bedrock of Indian economy. And it is very apt that IMC decided to organize this online seminar on the topic. The expert panelists consisting of Dr. C.P. Singh, Mr. Girish Brahmat, and Mr. Praveen Dongre have been very kind to agree to speak and share their wisdom. Of course, we have our own Mr. Chandrasekhar, Director at IMC and of our Economic Research and Training Foundation, to share his views and moderate the session. A little about IMC before we get into the session. As you probably may or may not know, IMC is a 113-year-old chamber set up in 1907. It is an apex chamber of trade, commerce and industry and headquartered in Mumbai. In fact, IMC actually, I would say, is the father of all chambers. FICCI started from IMC and IMC was one of the promoting chambers of ASSOCHAM. So we are very, very closely linked to the national chambers that we have in our country. In fact, IMC has got a forum of affiliated associations. We've got about over 200 such members, catering to about 4 lakh businesses in the western part of India. So the reach is tremendous. And IMC has been playing a proactive advocacy role to promote interests of all its members, mainly of industry, trade, and good coordination between government. Through the year round, we have interactive dialogue, seminar and conferences where eminent business and government leaders engage with members on a wide range of issues, and this is one of them. IMC strives to create policy environment conducive to growth of industry. On the international trade arena also, IMC is in the forefront of promoting bilateral trade between India and countries overseas. You would be happy to know that IMC is a elected member on the governing council of the ICC World Chambers Federation, which represents about 12,000 chambers worldwide. So we do have good reach nationally and internationally. We also have a vibrant ladies wing with around 2,000 members. We've got a whole lot of activities planned by the ladies wing, and it's all on more on entrepreneurial side. So all in all, IMC gives a very all-round sort of support and help to trade industry and to businesses in Maharashtra and also nationally. So with these few words, I welcome our esteemed speakers and participants from across India. And for all of you, thank you very much for joining in this. And I hand it over back to our moderator, Selby.
Thank you, sir. Just a minute. Yeah. Now, the first panelist, Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, Economic Advisor, IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, would be addressing us. Over to you, Mr. Chandrasekhar. I think your video is off, sir. Yeah. Sir, you can start. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Selby. Thank you, Ajit, for these welcome remarks. Such a delight to have been asked to moderate this panel discussion on COVID-19 and the impact on agriculture and outlook for the agriculture markets. You know, this pandemic has attacked our country at such a critical juncture for our agriculture. March and April are such critical months when we are at the cusp. We are transitioning from Rabi harvest to Kharif planting. March and April are crucial months for harvest of Rabi crops. And May month is very critical for planting, onset of monsoon, planting, delivery of inputs, etc. So this has come to our country at a very critical stage as far as agriculture is concerned. Lockdown has immobilized all the activities. Since March 26th, it's about more than 50 days now. And in fact, it's exactly 2 months since the time we at IMC started work from home. And therefore, this has immobilized the whole country. Lockdown certainly disrupted harvest activities and post-harvest activities. Labor was not available for harvest. Truck operators were not available to transport the goods. Mills, processing mills stopped functioning because of the national lockdown. Therefore, there was a lot of produce available for harvest or harvested produce lying in the field, but they could not be moved to the processing mills. sometime by mid-April, institutions, chambers of commerce such as the IMC, we realized the enormity of the challenge, and we actually made representation to the government to say that while lockdown is a necessity, somewhere we need to start exempting some of the critical activities such as agriculture harvest with due social distancing and hygiene practices, etc. And therefore, towards the end of April, with pressure from the chambers of commerce. In fact, I remember I was also part of the ASSOCHAM's agribusiness committee webinar. I gave a number of inputs to ASSOCHAM also, in addition to what we did at the IMC. And therefore, slowly, the government of India realized the importance of this and started to open up the markets. By towards the end of April, the mandis started to open up. Truck operators started to come in to transport the cargo, but migrant workers, daily wage earners who are a part of the harvesting labor still continues to be a problem. But prices of many agriculture commodities are still continuing to rule below the minimum support price in spite of a very large harvest of rabi crops. More than 100 million tons of wheat, more than 10 million tons of chana or chickpea, more than 8 million tons of rapeseed mustard, more than 6 million tons of maize. I think these are big numbers for the rabi season. In spite of it, prices of many crops are still ruling below the minimum support price, because the harvested produce will have to be marketed, will have to be moved from the field to the food factories, food processing factories, and then from on to the food plates of consumers. For that process is taking time, and lockdown has certainly disrupted this supply chain. Hopefully, this should come back to play quite soon, come back into normalcy quite soon. Procurement of wheat is going on. Procurement of chana is also going on, large crops. But the size of the volume and the size of the harvested crop is so big that the procurement agencies are no match for the size of the crop. And therefore, the pace of procurement is far less than what the market demands. And that is why prices of oil seeds, for example, are below the minimum support price. Price of pulses are below the minimum support price. The private trade and industry usually has a fairly large role in buying in the marketplace to build inventory. But what we have found over the last 2 years, that the confidence levels within the private trade and industry to start building large inventory, the confidence level has not been very high. Obviously, they are still very concerned about the government invoking the Essential Commodities Act, etc. But the good news is, last evening, I'm sure all of us heard the finance minister say that the Essential Commodities Act will not be invoked for cereals, pulses, oil seeds, sugar, etc., etc. We are certainly in a situation of a reasonable surplus in many of the commodities. And therefore, my sense is that the private trade and industry will now start to buy and start building stocks. This country has enough and more of food available. There is no doubt at all. I think if anybody has any doubt, I want to put all the doubt at rest. We have a lot of cargo, a lot of food stocks within the country. But most of these food stocks are in the raw form. For example, rice is in the paddy form. Your raw pulses need to be milled. Oil seeds need to be crushed to be converted into cooking oil and into cake. And therefore, that processing now needs to start. And because of lockdown, the processing had stalled for 6 to 7 weeks. On the end of the consumer, there was some kind of a panic, and people started to buy quantities in excess of what they usually buy, because they were not sure about the availability of food commodities. And therefore we found some tightness in the availability of food, and of course there was also a price rise at the retail level. But all that is going to be, in my opinion, a thing of the past. Enough and more food is available in this country. As I gave those numbers, there are very large harvest numbers. In addition, Food Corporation buffer stocks are something like 50 million tons of rice and wheat. NAFED is carrying about between 2 and 2.5 million tons of various pulses and so on. Therefore, there is enough and more food in this country. That's not a problem. And with the lifting of restrictions on mandi operations and on transportation and on warehousing and processing and movement to the retail store, I think we should expect that food supply chain that were disrupted should soon begin to normalize, and availability will increase substantially. Again, the good news is that the IMD, India Meteorological Department, has forecast a normal southwest monsoon for the upcoming Kharif season. The Kharif planting is actually beginning now, and it is actually started in many states like Punjab for crops like cotton to start with, and paddy transplantation, etc., etc. Therefore, we should hope to have a reasonably good monsoon, probably close to 100% of the long period average rainfall, which will be about 880 millimeters between June and September. And that itself is a good news for the country. And what is also important at this time is to ensure that, pardon me, ensure that inputs for the upcoming Kharif planting, like seeds, for example, and then of course fertilizers and agrochemicals are all delivered in time to farmers without any roadblock, without any hiccup, and quite smoothly. I think these are some of my opening comments and opening remarks. This is going to be an interesting year for the country and for the country's agriculture. Prices are more likely to be soft, particularly also because of the low crude oil prices globally. And therefore, I think it's going to be quite consumer friendly over the coming months in our country, which is good. I have a few suggestions which I will of course share at the end of the concluding part of our webinar. And now for his comments and for his thoughts, I want to invite Mr. Praveen Dongre, very well-known agribusiness specialist, a veteran in the agribusiness space for 3.5, 4 decades, and I've known him since his young executive days. Until recently, he was the India head chief CEO of one of the world's largest commodity companies called Glencore. He's also the founder director of the India Pulse and Grains Association, which is the apex body for the grains and pulses trade and industry in our country. And his networking and his lobbying efforts and his friendship with a lot of lawmakers and policymakers is, of course, quite legendary in the agribusiness circles. And I'm sure Praveen has a lot of thoughts, ideas to share with us, and probably some kind of a forward-looking guidance that he'll be able to give. Praveen, over to you.
Well, thank you, Chandrasekhar, and good morning, friends. I think apart from Chandrasekhar, I have not met any of you before, but certainly heard of you, and I'm very, very proud that IMC has given me this opportunity to participate in this panel discussion today. So as Chandrasekhar said, I represent the pulses and grain sector via being the founder and founder-chairman of IPGA, which is the nodal body for pulses and grains sector in India. We have about 600 members, but a lot of pan-India associations are members of our body, and hence our reach is to almost 10,000 participants of the pulses and grains trade across India. Some of them are farming organizations, some of them are processors, some of them are supply chain manufacturers, retailers, and I think we pretty much cover the entire supply chain, especially in the pulses business. We also hold one of the world's largest biennial conclaves in India, and with an attendance of almost 12 to 1400 people. And it is the largest gathering of pulses and grain people from across the globe. So taking up from where Chandrasekhar has already talked about, I would like to share some numbers with all the participants here on the kind of crop that India has harvested in the year 2019, crop year 2019-2020. Just to give you a feel, we are the second largest producers of rice and wheat in the world, and we have harvested this current crop year 118 million tons of rice and 107 million tons of wheat, apart from probably 30-40 million tons which is lying with the Food Corporation of India. Our coarse cereals harvest production this year has been 47 million tons. Maize is 30 million tons. Pulses is 23 million tons, which is almost 10% higher than our last 5-year average. And oilseeds are over 33.5 million tons. So hence, reiterating that in a time of crisis like the pandemic, there is always a panic which is created, and food is something that gets the first attention. There has been a process of restocking. People have stocked up more food than they would under normal circumstances. And of course, this has been a shot in the arm for the entire supply chain, this kind of demand and this kind of movement. And I must say that the government has given a huge amount of support to the supply chain to ensure the availability on the shelf does not get affected. And hence, I can assure all of you that as far as food goes, there's plenty in the country, and I don't think we shall see any shortages. Of course, taking from Chandrasekhar's comments that the farmer is not receiving the minimum support price as promised by the government, which is natural because the production being so high, it is impossible for the government to have or procure in all possible mandis across the country. But this is not reflecting immediately on the price on the shelf. So if you notice that the price on the shelf is almost higher by 30 or 40% than what you have been normally paying. So you buy a bag of atta or besan or dal, everything you will see on the shelf is higher. And this is primarily because the supply chain has gone into a tight situation. There are premiums being paid for transportation, premiums being paid for packing, etc. And of course, there are many ground level challenges like the lack of labor. There is a fright psychosis among the labor. You know, some of the laborers that I interact with in our factories told us that we don't know whether we will live or die. So it is better to die in our village than and have all the rituals performed rather than die in the city here with no relatives or family around us. So the migration of labor has created a lot of challenges. There are a lot of pre and post harvest issues which is, we are right in the middle of the Rabi harvest. A lot of mandis are non-operational. So the process of price discovery that happens in a mandi is extremely transparent and interesting, because there is an open auction which takes place. And in the absence of a lot of mandis not operating to their 100% capacities, the process of price discovery is not happening, and hence we see this huge distortion in the price at farm gate vis-a-vis the price that we see at the on the shelf in the supermarkets and the kirana stores. Processing and dal mills, of course, are not operational, and even though with all its stretched limited resources and stretched to the limit, we have got immense amount of support from the authorities, from the bureaucrats. I have never seen never seen Indian bureaucrats so positively and so interactive and so receptive to suggestions from our association. I mean, this is a huge change that I see, and I think it's extremely encouraging. And it is very important that in this time of crisis, associations like us engage with them continuously, because they are very receptive and are willing to act immediately. But my point to you today is a little different, you know, while we're going through the COVID situation, etc. Is that the country with this huge population, I would say quite proudly that we are completely fulfilled as far as our calorific requirements are concerned, primarily because of the large crops of wheat and rice that we are harvesting, and the absolutely fantastic procurement, storage and distribution systems of the public distribution scheme that the government has put together. But through the various schemes and yojanas. But in my opinion, the challenge in a country like ours lies in the nutritional security of the people. I think people in India, a very large number of people, and I think Chandrasekhar with his statistical mind can throw more light, but there are hundreds of millions of people still below the poverty line, and these are the people who need to be addressed, and nutritional security is extremely important in our country, and one of the important contents of nutrition in our country today is protein. India today has the lowest per capita protein consumption in the world, and being a vegetarian country, I think pulses is a commodity. A pulses is a source and the most economical source for a populous country like India, and I think this is where focus needs to be drawn of the trade and of the authorities for popularizing the pulses and drawing the pulses and dals into the public distribution system so that the rural India and the poor of this country have access to proteins. Worldwide, proteins, vegetable proteins are getting great amount of attention, and especially with news that COVID-19 has emerged from wet markets. Vegetarianism worldwide in the West is catching a lot of attention. I can name a few companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat, which have gained valuations in the United States of close to $6 to $7 billion. So I think this is the future. We need to concentrate on the nutritional security of our country. And post-COVID, we are going to see a lot of changes. There has been tremendous disruption both in economic life as well as our way we work in our personal lives also. And I think the natural reactions of world governments worldwide, including India, is going to be self-dependence, or as our Prime Minister says, Atmanirbharta. We need to be vocal about local, and the government is going to make all efforts and provide all support to increase production, and India becoming self-reliant in its food requirements. Of course, this is something that we have been dreaming of for a long time. We have been partly successful primarily because of our minimum support scheme, but we still import almost 15 million tons of our edible oils out of the total 21 million tons that we consume, which is almost 65% of our edible oil needs of this country. Our basic needs are imported. We import close to 3 million tons of pulses. So my message today would be that the government should allow and should continue to remain in the global supply chain, and then this complete protectionism that would be a natural reaction of the government post this pandemic, though is the correct way to go through, but we need to do it in a more gradual way, and we need to remain in the global supply chain. The other important changes that I see post-COVID is I see a lot of digitization happening, a lot of blockchain development happening as people will start working on the online platforms. I think trading platforms will be developed. I think the e-mandi concept will get popularized. I think farm produce will be available and freely traded on the net. And this, I'm sure, is going to accelerate, especially after the current crisis. The recent announcements on the reforms by the finance minister who has announced a 1.5 lakh crore package to strengthen the infrastructure and logistics at the farm and processing level. There have been agri-marketing reforms. New central laws will be brought in to bypass mandis, barrier-free interstate movement, framework for e-trading. The entire Essential Commodities Act, which was like a draconian act monitoring this food business, which created a hell of a lot of hindrance in getting larger players involved, and corporate investment has now in the planning stage of being deregulated. Stock limits will be also re-looked at. And also another important factor which directly affects the value that a produce, or as Chandrasekhar had mentioned, that the farmer realizing the real value of what he produces will be of creating a standardization in quality and creating a sort of a risk net for the farmers. So this is also in the process, and then there have been some certain freedom that the farmers will have. So these are the very important reforms that we see that have happened, and my conclusion, of course, and my concluding statement would be that while all this is happening, we should continue to stay as an association, continue to stay extremely engaged with the bureaucrats and with the government, because they are in the mode, as I said, to listen and react to your suggestions. And India as a country should continue to stay in the global supply chain while trying to get investment at the farm level for processing, storage, and modernization of farm inputs. So these are my opening statements, and over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thanks, Praveen. Thanks for very comprehensively covering your area of expertise. I truly appreciate what you said. Associations like IPGA will have to stay engaged with the policymakers. Chambers like the IMC, we are constantly engaged with the policymakers. If my memory serves me right, IPGA is a member of IMC. And therefore, there is an opportunity for IPGA and IMC to work together in making joint representations on a number of aspects relating to agriculture, cereals, food security, nutrition security, etc. Therefore,
but thanks.
This is one. Second, you mentioned about a huge nutrition challenge and very high poverty levels in India. According to the United Nations, India has, hold your breath, 364 million people below the poverty line. That represents 28% of the population. I'm not saying this. It is the United Nations which is saying that. Therefore, we have an enormous challenge, a daunting challenge on our hand to address the hunger pangs of this close to 400 million, 364 million people. And possibly the lockdown has only worsened the situation for a number of people. But anyway, let's not go into that. Therefore, we have a few hundred millions below the poverty line. They are the ones who are nutritionally challenged. They are the ones who don't have money. And they are the ones who actually deserve to consume more food and deserve to consume more nutritious food. And therefore, the point is well taken. You also talked about staying within the global value chain. Yes, we have to go local. We have to be vocal about local. We have to look at self-reliance. All that is fine. But that self-reliance is not going to happen overnight. And therefore, while we need to walk that path towards self-reliance, we should also make sure that there are no shortages in our country because our agriculture is vulnerable and fragile. And therefore, I completely agree with your point that we should stay aligned with the global value chain, keep your import and export window both open with appropriate checks and balances in terms of tariff restrictions, etc., etc. I think that point is extremely well taken. Thank you very much for your absolutely comprehensive presentation. There could possibly be some follow-up question. Let's see how it goes. I'm now going to go to our friend Girish Brahmabhat. He is the chairman of the India Spices and Foodstuffs Exporters Association. He's been in this business for, again, 40 years or so. All of us are friends. We all have known each other for long years. He's somebody who has hands-on experience in the spices and foodstuff sector, particularly from an export perspective. Girish Bhai, please share with us your thoughts on how this pandemic has impacted your business, how this pandemic has disrupted your business, and what are your plans? How are you planning to get out of this disruption? And where do you see these markets going, say, in the second half of the year? Girish Bhai.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar ji, for inviting me on this platform. And I would like to share some of mine as well as my members' views regarding this pandemic COVID-19. We are suffering a lot. First of all, I would like to say that first line of warriors work is almost over. Still it is continue, like paramedical, medical, and all police and other departments. So there comes in first line of warrior. Now we businessmen and industrialists, we are comes in second line of warrior. Now we have to fight against this economy because our economy is getting paralyzed. So we have to fight as a warrior. I request and I push my all business friends and my agriculture products exporters as well as local suppliers and all. Now we have to fight like a warrior. Now we have to come out from this, and this is I believe this is a golden opportunity that India will again brighten up in the world in the agriculture industry. Second thing, I would like to say some government helps also. Always government is pushing our agriculture industry to boost the exports. Every alternate day I get call from Commerce Ministry, Agriculture Ministry, Spices Board, APEDA, that please, if you have any difficulties, please tell us. Ask your members to increase your exports. We want again in the same our exports should come in the same line what it was earlier. So if you have any difficulties, then please tell us. And really, I was happy with Agriculture Ministry because they have put, in beginning we had a lots of problem of transport, and the Agriculture Ministries, they have set up a call center for any difficulties related to transport. They were standby all 24 hours, I say. I give you my own example that I had some problem and I called that helpline. They were sitting in Delhi and they have managed my container to reach in my warehouse within half an hour. So really, it is, I mean, tremendous job done by the ministry also. Second thing, we are happy with all the Agri and Commerce Ministry, because Agri Ministry, they have also set up in exports, we have lots of problem like phytosanitary certificates and other certificates. So they have all instructed the department in all regions, and they have set up nicely. I must salute to our Dr. Nain, who is a phytosanitary head of the phytosanitary in Mumbai, JNPT, and he has set up he has opened a special counter in APMC market for any for the issuing of the certificates, phytosanitary certificate, which is very important for the exports agri products. So I must say that government is pushing. Only we are getting some. I mean, not satisfied with the finance ministry, because my all members, they are very much upset because finance ministry says a lot, I mean, announcing a lot, but they are not supporting properly. And I mean, proper channel is not there. So it is. I'll give you some examples. Recently, they have announced this. They have changed the MSME structure. Earlier, it was all exporter members, they were getting the benefit of interest subvention. But recently, they have put some caps on turnover. So my many members, they are suffering. They are not getting that benefit of this interest subvention. Secondly, this time my many members, they have got lots of orders has been cancelled, and they made a forward contract in foreign currency. So there is a big loss in foreign currency also. But in that also, government is not supporting. Just for your, I got some feedback from my various trade associations and some members that just comparing the figures of last April 2019 and April 2020, in spices, we have lost about almost short by 25%. Rice, I come to know that it is rice export is almost neck to neck in April, but in spices, we are short by almost 25%, short compared to last year 19. Some other agriculture products also, we are behind. So, and I think in month of May, we will have another blow, because our laborers as well as drivers, now my many members, they are having problem of container movements. Their cargo is ready, but they are not able to bring the containers from the container yard, and they can't shift it to cargo, shift it to the port. So there is a major difficulties my members are facing. And I think these are the difficulties my all members are facing, and we are hopeful that we will try our best and we will come up again. Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
Levi, tell me to what extent are the factories affected in terms of producing, processing? Are a very large number of your members have they shut down? Have they restarted now by any chance after the easing of the lockdown restrictions? Cleaning, grading, processing factories?
First of all, the my members, they were having a permit issue, because in the beginning they were not getting the permit to open the factories and warehouses. Slowly, government have support. Central government has support us a lot, and they have.
Hello, आया क्या?
Hello. Can you hear me, Chandrasekhar ji? Okay. We have been supported by central government ministry, but somehow we were facing some problem with the state government ministry, but they have also supported, and slowly our all industries in MIDC, it has been started. But now we are facing problem of some they are insisting to provide food. Food is not a problem. It my all industrialists, I mean the people who are running the industry, they will manage the food. But they said that you provide the accommodation. So accommodation is a very difficult, sir. In factory, it is not possible. Few members they can accommodate, but all workers, I mean at least 30%, it is very difficult to accommodate in a factory. That is a major issue, sir.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you, Girish Bhai. There is a third speaker from EPIDA, Mr. Singh, and I believe Singh is actually held up in a webinar with his chairman and his top management. Therefore, I suspect he is not in yet. I'm sure Ganeshan will confirm.
No, he's not in, sir.
He's not in yet.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's okay. What is also important is I want to, before I forget, I don't even want to keep it towards the end. I want to compliment our colleague Ganeshan from IMC Vashi for actually organizing this event and getting all the panelists on board. I think he deserves, he's put in a tremendous amount of work, and he deserves, of course, a huge round of applause. And therefore, I'm going to applaud for Ganeshan from here. Okay, so we have, so Singh, Mr. Singh is not available as yet. There is a possibility he could join by about 12 noon. But before that, I was wondering if Mr. Praveen Dogre has any more comments to make. You want to share something? If not, I mean, tell me. I'll say I have a few statements to share. Yeah, you have something to share, Praveen?
Yeah, surely. I mean,
please.
From your question about the challenges at the production level.
Yeah.
Currently, in the agri and in the grain and pulses mills, etc., production is down by 30 to 40%.
Yeah.
But the fear here is that if this migration continues at the rate that it is going, then I think we might face some further tightening of the pipeline, and the pipeline could dry up. I do not see any immediate need to panic, but the migration seems to be picking up, and roadblocks, etc., have been lifted, and I think soon the more trains also will start. So this is some sort of a risk that I see at the moment, which the supply chain could face if this migration continues at the rate that it is going through.
I understand. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm going to, anything more, or is this all?
No, I think that's
okay. All right. Thank you. I'm now going to go back to our Girish Bhai. Girish Bhai, you mentioned, I completely agree. Businessmen are the second line warriors. I truly appreciate that, because while the first line COVID warriors are looking after the health, human health side, businessmen are looking after the economic health of the nation.
Correct.
So both are related to health. One is human health, the other one is economic health. But I quite enjoyed what you said. I quite liked what you said. I also feel good. I feel glad that the government is rather proactive in trying to address the roadblocks and difficulties which exporters are facing, which businesses are facing. You talked about the fact that spices exports are down 25% in April, and possibly the same could be the case in the month of May also. How do you see the prospects going forward, say in the second half of the year, Girish Bhai?
You mean how, I mean what we can do so our exports can be increased, right?
How do you see exports exports happening, export volumes and realization, will there be a rebound in export in the second half of the year?
Right. Sir, first of all, I would like to say that spices, and particularly, especially Indian spices, have a very good
Image.
what not apart from image,
Demand.
the strength of the which fights against corona. As for example, yes, I would like to give you that ginger.
Therapeutic value.
Exactly,
Okay,
therapeutic value.
Yeah.
Ginger is superb, because if you have a regularly ginger, your immunity will increase.
Correct.
Similarly, right now there is a good demand of black cumin. That is a kalunji. Kalunji is also having a very good, yes. So we are having very good inquiries for some special spices.
Yeah.
And we are hopeful that if with the support of the government, we will be able to export, and we will achieve our target what government have fixed up.
Correct.
Only, sir, one more suggestion. It
Sure.
came in my mind yesterday.
Sure.
Right now we are
Sure.
having problem of container movements. So
Containers.
because all these laborers and drivers, they have gone back to their native place. So we are having acute shortage of drivers. Sir, can we suggest to ministry, that is a state government ministry, that right now their transporters, based, as well as the Maharashtra state transport drivers, they are sitting idly because the movement is very less compared to regular one.
Yeah.
So if we can have something like that, we can ask them to provide some drivers to for container movements. Is it possible? Can we suggest this to?
I don't know. It will depend on the license that the drivers are holding. The
No,
point is,
they all are having heavy license.
Okay.
So and container movement also the same. Only we have to we have to give this proposal if they will accept,
Right.
or they will be
Correct.
arranging something.
Girish bhai, because you're on the ground, you're facing problems, and you have some ideas how to address the problem. Can you please give to us at IMC, write to the DG a small note on the current issue and what is the solution that you're recommending? We will then take a call on how to represent, because I'm sure we'll be consolidating various wonderful suggestions like you're giving from various people, and then we'll take it we'll take it forward. One concern that I have, and maybe you can respond, and even Praveen Dongre can respond, is that even by the end of March, the Reserve Bank of India governor announced a significant reduction in the interest rates and a massive expansion of liquidity. The intention being banks will have to lend to businesses to ensure that businesses don't close down or businesses don't lay off people, and that there is continuity in business. I'll tell you, I personally get many calls from my industrialist friends and friends from services sector, etc., very fairly high position holders, and they're all not happy at all with the banking sector, with the bank managers who are very reluctant to actually lend money to businesses. Are your members facing any such difficulty?
No, I agree completely with your last statement that the bankers are extremely
reluctant.
In fact, they have got even more cautious and tighter because they are living in a very uncertain period of time, and they are not very sure of what their current lending and what kind of NPAs the bank will face. And obviously, that has created the banks to take a step back.
Yeah.
So I think a little more would need to be done by just more than just RBI loosening these smaller with the RBI reform. Just to give an example, with my business in the United States, the government has come out with a program known as PPP, which is the Payroll Protection Program. With production of certain very simple documents, 3 months of wages at a very discounted interest rate of 1% is provided to you, which immediately takes care of your payroll for 60 to 90 days. And it also comes with a corollary that in the event that you are using this for the right cause, then it can also be written off. And also that 20% of this can be used for paying your rental, etc. So these kind of huge cash in hand measures, I think, are the need of the moment. While we welcome the RBI reforms, I think more important is cash in hands, where basic payroll payment to labor and staff can be looked after, rentals can be looked after. I think that is the immediate need. We can't hear you, Chandrasekhar.
Hello? So you're mute. Hello?
Okay. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Now
Okay,
you're
all right,
unmuted.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. No, thanks, Praveen. Girish bhai, what are your thoughts on bank transmission? Are you facing difficulties with the bank managers? Are you able to get your monies from the bank? Girish bhai, for you.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, Girish
Okay.
bhai, for you, are you facing any difficulties with your bankers? Are you getting enough money? Are they giving you? Are they more accommodative?
Especially in my case, my Union Bank of India, I'm very much happy and very much satisfied. But some of the other members, they are facing some problem with some banks, and especially private banks, they are giving, tough time to them.
Yeah.
So that is to be sorted out.
Okay. Understood. All right. Thanks. Okay. I don't know if Ganeshan is around. Ganeshan, any news from Mr. Singh?
Yeah, yes. He just sent a message that in 5-10 minutes he'll be joining, sir.
In 10 minutes.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure if we are able to.
Sir, can I pitch in? There are few questions. Maybe I can just read them out.
Okay.
And
all right.
the speakers
I can see there are as many as 39 questions.
Yes. So
maybe I'll take, and then finally, of course, I'll need about 5 to 7 minutes for rounding up and sharing some.
Exactly. So till he joins us, we can take the questions, sir.
Can I go into that chat and check the questions?
Should I read it out, sir?
Yeah, please. Okay.
Okay. I'll read them out. Yeah. Okay. The first question is coming from Mr. Vimal Savan Sukha. He says, we find prices of all these commodities high in the APMC markets. So, any comment on that?
Yeah, obviously, I think as we discussed, the harvested produce will have to move. They're in the field, they need to come to the market. And from the market, it will be marketed. And therefore, there is a tightness in supplies at the moment. And yet, I would say in some of the crops, the mandi prices are far lower than the minimum support price. Take chana, for example. Chana's minimum support price is 4,875 rupees a quintal. At the mandis, it is 4,000 rupees, 20% lower. And therefore, it is not correct to say, correct to make a blanket statement that at the APMC mandi, all prices are high. Wherever there is a tightness in supply, their prices could be slightly higher. This is number one. Take mustard, for example. Minimum support price 4,400 rupees. Market price just about 4,000, 10% lower. Therefore, for major crops, field crops which have been harvested in the Rabi season, I think prices are actually below the minimum support price. But in case of some possibly perishables, fruits and vegetables, APMC prices could be higher because of supply chain disruption. But I see this disruption because it's only a short-term disruption. Once lockdown is substantially eased or lifted, I'm sure a lot more produce will come into the mandis and that should stabilize prices. Yep. Next. Selvi, next.
Yeah, the next one is a comment from Mr. Mudit Jain. Chambers of Commerce like IMC and others have been amazing in connecting members and organizing talks for members and giving a platform to the government. The government should outsource its commercial and finance ministers, commerce and finance ministers to them.
Right.
The question next comes from Renu. What about logistics during this lockdown times? How can the produce be collected and distributed? Are there any agencies specifically looking into doing this work? For which I think Mr. Girish had already given a suggestion.
Correct.
So I think that is already answered. The next one is, what are the main activities of pulses and grain associations by Mr. Vimal Savansukha?
Yeah, for Praveen. This is for Praveen.
Yeah, Mr. Praveen.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have 600 members, and from across the country, we have 3 offices. One in so the head office is in Mumbai, and we have an office in Delhi, in Calcutta, and in Chennai. And broadly, it's a platform for looking at the interests of the trading and processing community of the country. So basically, we do a lot of interaction with the governments, with bureaucrats, with on the import front, with the custom authorities, with DGFT. There is a fair amount of discussion and handholding in the policies making, and many a times the lead role when there are years of huge shortages, that like 2006-7, when the country had to import nearly 9 million tons of wheat, or otherwise in the normal years that pulses imports have been growing at a peak. In the year 2016, India imported almost 6 million tons of pulses. So there's a lot of policy hand-holding, domain sharing, and a solid platform for representation of the problems faced by the industry. So this is a very broad description, apart from a lot of international interaction and domain sharing of articles, and bringing in speakers, organizing seminars. So it's a fairly active association. And you can always contact me personally if you need any further information.
The next question is
one second, Selvi. While on this, while we talk about pulses, and pulses have been the focus of attention in the last 4 or 5 years, and why not? Given the fact that a large part of our population faces undernutrition and protein deficiency. What is a significant step the government of India took recently was in supplying 5 kilograms of either rice or wheat per person per month for 3 months. And that would cover about 800 million people in India, April, May, and June, plus 1 kilogram of pulses per month per vulnerable family. And I assume there are 5 members in a family, and therefore there'll be about 160 to 170 million families in India. And therefore, there's 1 kilo pulses per vulnerable family per month translates to about 170,000 tons of pulses per month. In 3 months, it will be about 5 lakh tons, 500,000 tons. And let me assure you, as somebody who's been closely associated with IPGA and with, of course, Mr. Dongre, in particular, he was the chairman of the association. I know the association has done a tremendous amount of lobbying, actually, providing guidance to the government to ensure that nutrition security is as important as food security in India. And therefore, these are, these communications over time obviously have an impact. And it has come at the most appropriate time for us when daily wage workers and migrant labor are all on the move, going back, and therefore this I believe is a beginning of government's response to nutrition challenges, and I would actually think, and I'm sure on behalf of IMC, we should also make a recommendation that this supply of pulses through the through PDS, to public distribution system, and under the National Food Security Act should continue beyond June. Why only for 3 months? It should continue beyond June, along with rice and wheat. The central government must supply pulses, which will advance the nutrition security of people. Do you agree, Praveen?
Yes, completely.
Completely. I think we have, if you remember, we have discussed this, and I'm sure we have shared our thoughts on this. Yep.
May I request Mr. Sanjay Mehta to pitch in? He wanted to share something.
Sure, sure.
Over to you, Mr. Mehta.
Yeah. I just wanted to know from you, from the panelists, anybody can throw a light on it, that yesterday that 1 lakh crore of investment into infrastructure of agriculture and allied activities like warehousing and cold chain, and also reforms of market farmer where farmers can directly sell to processors. Do you think that this will encourage foreign direct investment into India in food processing industry? Because although it is 100% allowed, it has not come as per expectation. So what do you think?
You want me to respond?
Yeah.
Anyone? Praveen, you have any response, or Girish Bhai? If not, then I want to share my thoughts.
Just
okay?
few,
Yeah,
just
sure.
few
Please.
points from my side. Getting the farmer, or giving the farmer the right to sell into outside the mandi will certainly make the process more efficient, as the farmer is no more in today's time, ill-informed, etc. There is enough material available on the online and on WhatsApp, and prices are freely available. And also it will cut short a lot of middlemen. So, typically there are two middlemen, one from the farmer's side, one from the buyer or the processor side. There is handling at mandi level, which is the unloading, loading. Then there is a handling loss post mandi. Then there is a cost of the mandi. The government charges a particular cess. So if I put all these things together, in certain mandis, I can't make a sweeping statement, but in certain mandis, this kind of saving could go as high as 10%, which is a huge amount. And this will certainly make processors, etc., who get direct delivery, make their businesses viable, make the supply chain more viable, and obviously the return to the farmer more transparent and more viable. So this is certainly a huge reform and a huge step forward. Thank you. That's all, Chandrasekhar.
Yes, without doubt, it's a huge reform, allowing growers who were actually choked by the law that they have to take this to the APMC mandis and sell, and not sell outside, which means they were they had their degrees of freedom completely restricted. There was no such restriction on industrial products. In industrial products, nobody said, yeah, there is a panel of people, you can sell only to them. They were free to sell in the market. Farmers had no such freedom. This is a freedom which is completely overdue. So I'll come back, Praveen, I'll come back to you. The 70-year-old overdue issue. APMC had certain logic probably until 15, 20 years ago. For 50 years, it had some logic, but I think it's outliving its utility. And therefore, farmers are now allowed to sell outside of the APMC system, which then they should be able to find buyers. In my opinion, instead of individual farmers, if they are able to aggregate as a farmer producer company or FPOs, their bargaining position will improve. This is the first one. Second, Sanjay, you asked about the FDI in infrastructure development.
Into agri processing.
Yes, into agri. FDI
because 40% is going wasted. Because
right. FDI in food processing is already under the 100%
yes.
automatic route. FDI in infrastructure development has the potential, but we must also remember foreign investors, particularly not the financial investors, but in the investors in the real economy, will not only look at the potential and the period that it will take for them to get a return. They look at the return on investment and the period of the return on investment. They will also look at the stability of the government policies, stability of production, and the overall socio-political and economic landscape of the country. So they will have to take a call on that overall socio-political economic landscape of the country. Do they feel confident that if I put in $50 million, $100 million in this country, will it is it safe? Will I get return? How soon will I get my return? I think so that assessment they will make, and possibly different investors may have different views while making this socio-political and economic assessment. Yeah. Potential exists. There is a potential to attract FDI. So it is in our hands. It is for us, for the government, for the administration, for the entrepreneurs to create एक ऐसा माहौल हमें तैयार करना है जहां foreign direct investor feels confident, this is the right market where I should go.
It is whether it is foreign direct investment or domestic investment.
Right.
It has potential to enhance your exports.
Absolutely.
Like milk into milk products.
Absolutely.
You know that 140 millions of milk going a lakh million every day, and government had to buy that. If there were processing industries into cheese and all powder and all those things, that could have done a wonders to our export.
Bilkul. I agree.
I think Mr. Mr. Singh is joined.
Oh, lovely, very good. Very good.
So I'm just waiting for his audio to be enabled.
Okay.
Just
right.
give me a moment. Till that
time. Selby, you're doing a wonderful job of time management. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you,
Maybe
sir.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah, I'm just reading out one more question, which seems to be a good one. Export and import policies are not stable, which sends bad signals to the world's suppliers and buyers. What suggestion do our panelists have to give our governments?
Anything? Would Girish Bhai have a view? Girish Bhai? I think you unmute him.
No, he is unmuted.
He's okay. He's heard the question. Did
Girish
he hear
Bhai,
the question?
Okay, 1 minute. I think he'll have to unmute himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Girish Bhai.
Now, did you hear the question?
Yeah, please, can you repeat the question?
Our import-export policies are unstable. What should we do? Is a question somebody is asking.
Okay. Our import-export policy, particularly for agri products, it depends on the crop size and weather conditions. So government is very much watching on it, and accordingly they put the restrictions, or they allow agriculture products. So and our government needs foreign exchange. So they are very much in favor of export of agriculture products.
Right. I have some view. I don't think our agriculture, am I audible? Yeah.
Yes,
I don't think our agriculture import-export policies keep changing often.
Just a minute, sir. I think there's a disturbance from Mr. Singh's video. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay. You can continue, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Our import-export policy some 25 years ago, 30 years ago was extraordinarily restrictive. That situation doesn't obtain today. Our import-export policy is substantially liberal. There is only a negative list of import or export, where import or export is banned, items are banned, and there is a restricted list where there are restrictions, conditions attached to import or export. Otherwise, what is not mentioned in this list is completely free. Number one. But yes, I do agree. There have been restrictions. For example, there was restriction on export of onion, etc. Yeah, these are aberrations. This is not the rule. And therefore, these aberrations we need to, even these aberrations we should overcome. I remember having commented on the fact that any ban on export of agriculture commodity is an anti-farmer move. If we are talking about farmer welfare, please, for heaven's sake, do not ban export because farmers are directly hurt. Therefore, this has been our stand, and therefore it is a little unfair to say that our import-export policies keep changing very often. I think I don't agree with that. Okay, now I think we should invite. Is Mr. Singh ready?
I think we have just lost him. I think he must be joining again.
Okay.
So maybe we can just address one more question.
Sure.
Just a minute. Okay. There is a request to Mr. Girish Bhai. If you could share a helpline number.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Sir, so please, if possible, you could just share a helpline number.
This is one, Selvi, and also ask Girish Bhai to email after the show to you and others at the chamber, DDG, and we can send a circular to all the members to make use of that helpline number for truck operators, etc.
Okay.
Right, sir? Girish Bhai, will you do that, sir?
Girish Bhai.
I think one.
Girish Bhai mute हुआ.
Yeah, he muted.
No, when I am unmuting him, he is muted. So it's okay. So now you can speak.
Okay.
Please share.
Yes, sure. Definitely, I will share it to IMC. And we have our own group, ISFA family. In that, I have already shared. So my all members, they are taking advantage of it. But definitely, I will share this to IMC also.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. Selvi, over to you.
Okay. There is a question. We are also okay. I want a helpline for packing and marketing. So there are quite a number of people who have asked for me various helplines, like for fruits and markets, spices. I would request Mr. Girish Bhai to please share these.
Yeah, as many helpline numbers.
Yeah, as many helplines. Now, there is another question. This is on data theft, basically. Datas are sold by private companies with most accurate figures for exports and imports. How can it be stopped and safeguarded?
May I respond? I think if a private company is selling data, don't subscribe to it. You are the DGCIS. Subscribe to the DGCIS number, which is under the Commerce Ministry. But they're also not giving it free. In my opinion, government compiled information should be freely available. But for some reason, I think the DGCIS has started to charge a fee for sharing import-export data, quantity, and value. But I think it is better to subscribe and pay the government agency rather than the private sector. But at the same time, look at the Solvent Extractors Association. They share import-export data of vegetable oils and oil cakes through their monthly magazine. It is free. It is an email which comes to everybody. And therefore...
हाँ नहीं उसको कुछ नेटवर्क का प्रॉब्लम है मैसेज भेजा उसने उसका नेटवर्क आई टोल्ड हिम टू रीट्राई अगेन रिट्राई करने बोला उसको मैं हाँ वो
प्लीज अनम्यूट मिस्टर पिल्लाई
yeah just a minute.
Mute Mr. Pillai.
Yeah, he is unmuted. Yeah mute. Okay,
so is he joining or not joining?
He is having some network issues.
Right.
That's
Therefore,
what
we
he
should
said.
assume
Yeah.
he's not joining.
I don't know. There are people still joining. Now somebody is joined with an ASUS, so I don't know whether this person. I think somebody is joined from another instrument. The name showing is ASUS. So let me just check whether it is Mr. Singh. Till that time, maybe we can address another
because
question.
I don't want to be unfair to our panelists who are present here.
Yeah. Pulses exports were opened after a gap of 11 years. How will that affect the market scenario in India, and what impact will it have on the global markets, if any? It's a question from India Pulses.
Vivin, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'll take that. Well,
Sure.
Pulse's exports have opened, but structurally, India is deficit of pulses. Of course, that deficit has reduced considerably from an import of 6 million tons. We are down to 3 million tons. But structurally, we are a country which is deficit. So pulses exports are happening. There are ethnic Indian populations who do pay a premium for Indian originated processed pulses. But it's not really had a big effect on pricing in India, because the volumes that are currently being exported are very small as compared to the total crop or total consumption of 26 million tons. So my take would be that to increase this export or to give a flip to this industry, one needs to do a little more research, go into fractions of pulses, and go into more ready to eat and ready to cook sort of. That is where the world is heading. So I think a little more of investment, a little bit of research, and a little more of modernization of the processing, I think, will then increase the exports. But for the moment, they are really minuscule to really matter.
Thanks. I remember very clearly 2007, we had a major inflation problem in our country when pulses exports were banned. After some time, then Kabuli chickpea export was allowed. We were doing about 2 or 3 lakh tons of Kabuli chickpea export every year. We were, of course, very large importers, 3 million, 4, 5, 6 million. 6.5 million was the peak import in 2015 and 16. But 2016, 17 onwards, there has been a big rebound in pulses production. Pulses prices have collapsed. Farmers have not been able to see a good price. That is a time the government of India should have opened up pulses export very quickly. Fellows like me have written any number of comments and have spoken on television, but finally, sometime in early 2018, the Commerce Ministry opened pulses export. But our pulses are not actually competitive. We used to, before 2007, we used to have a large market for Indian lentils, Indian masoor, particularly by the expatriate Indian population. But because we were out of the market, out of the export market, that captive consumption was lost. Now we need to put huge amount of effort in promoting our export. We are outpriced in some way because of higher and higher minimum support price, and our productivity levels are very low. We are outpriced. We are able to sell, we are able to export probably 3 or 4 or 5 lakh tons of pulses at the moment, which is actually low quantity. But if we want to promote that export, for example, what have we done to leverage our bilateral agreement with our neighboring countries? Bangladesh imports easily up to 15 lakh tons of various pulses. Sri Lanka imports easily up to 5 lakh tons of various pulses. can the government of India not talk to those governments and bilaterally tell them that India will will meet their pulse import needs? All that is possible. But I think a certain amount of, what should I say, political will is required to push pulses exports. And we are not going to be able to export unlimited quantities of pulses. That situation is not going to arise. We will be able to export only limited quantities, but we have to explore even that fully. But as Mr. Dongre said very clearly, we need to value add, extract protein, fractionate and extract protein, and use that protein in a number of value added products like infant food, like protein for sports persons, geriatric food, that is food for elderly people, etc., etc. So there is a big opportunity for investment, for fractionation and extraction of protein from pulses, and for application of that protein in a number of value added snack products, etc., etc. Thank you. Has he joined?
Yeah, there is, no, he's not yet joined. There is a information that everybody can take as a this thing. Dear participants, this is from Mr. P. Suresh Babu. Dear participants, glad to connect with you all through this program. GeoChem is operational during this lockdown period across the country and supporting food and agricultural products inspection and testing requirements. Please do keep in touch with us on your inspection and testing requirements. So this is an information that has been shared, and I thought it might be helpful.
Right. Sylvie,
yeah.
I think I'm sure there are a lot of questions. It is
Chandrasekharji, 1 minute.
Yeah,
there is a agri transport call center number is there.
Okay,
if
great.
anybody is interested.
Oh, lovely,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
Take a picture. People can take a picture. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they can take a picture. If you want, I can read it out. It's the toll-free number is 1800 180 4200
And
14488.
Correct.
Great, Sylvie. Okay. I think we need to now, we are coming hopefully towards the concluding part of this of this panel discussion. I want to leave all our participants here with some thoughts. The government of India has announced a slew of measures recently to support agriculture and agri-related activities, MSME sector, construction, etc. All this is welcome. Hope all these good intentions translate into actual investments and reforms on the ground, and that we are able to attract even FDI in our agri-infrastructure sector. My belief very clearly is food security will increasingly be the key theme of the government of India. The slogan of Atmanirbharta will also include food security and nutrition security, which will take us towards self-reliance substantially in the agriculture sector, services, and of course in manufacturing. Most of the future policies of this country, in my opinion, will be welfare oriented. And because most future policies will be welfare oriented, food forms a significant part of this welfare orientation. And therefore, food production, food processing, food distribution, food consumption, and food trade will get more and more boost or more and more fillip as we go forward. On their part, consumers are certainly going to become a little more health conscious than they were earlier. The scope or the opportunity for health foods, the market for health foods is likely to expand, and therefore that gives to entrepreneurs an opportunity to explore various forms of healthy foods and health foods for the market, targeting infants, women, young adults, old people, sports people. I mean, there are various categories various segments of people. I think we can target them. Nutrition security, we have the Ayushman Bharat, and we have also another scheme for a portion scheme. But I think these schemes need to be strengthened. Nutrition security needs to be advanced along with food security. And what better way than promoting consumption of nutritious food amongst a large section of the masses who are truly vulnerable. And what better staple food than pulses to consume for the vulnerable sections of the masses. After all, animal protein, we are the world's largest producers of milk, but milk protein is expensive. Egg protein, poultry protein, all this is expensive. Whereas pulses, soybean and groundnut, 3 legumes, offer the most economical vegetable protein for this country, whose consumption, in my view, will substantially increase in the days and years, months ahead. I would like the government of India's policies to recognize the relationship between agriculture, nutrition, and health. At the moment, there is a certain lack of recognition. And once we recognize the relationship between agriculture, nutrition, and health, I think our agriculture policies will certainly undergo significant changes. What is also important is we need to lift people out of poverty. According to the United Nations, 364 million people, 28% of the population. Agriculture is one activity which will lift a very large part of the people out of poverty. If we are able to strengthen our agriculture production, processing, distribution, consumption, and trade, it will substantially deliver incomes to the rural population and will contribute to lifting people out of poverty. And I am absolutely convinced going forward, both agriculture and agribusiness will be technology driven. And when I talk of technology driven agriculture, we talk about the role of information technology, biotechnology, satellite technology, nuclear agriculture technology, nanotechnology, use of drones, etc. All that is going to increase, definitely. And from an agri-business perspective, as Mr. Dongre very clearly pointed out, the future is digitization, blockchain technology, etc., etc. That is what is going to happen. Automation and mechanization, increased automation and mechanization is going to be the way forward for agriculture and agribusiness. And protectionism is something all of us have seen over the last 2 years, particularly starting with Mr. Trump in the White House in the United States, talking about Make America Great Again. Every country would like to become great, and therefore every country would start its own protectionism. This is something we need to live with, and therefore our policies and programs and investment have to gear our country to ensure that how best we maximize output in terms of a unit investment. How do we maximize our unit of production? I think that is what is going to give our agriculture and agribusiness global competitiveness. The time we reach the capability to produce products that are acceptable, that are globally acceptable, and we are able to produce at globally comparable cost, we would become globally competitive. And therefore, that's the objective that we need to work towards. We must become globally competitive by building capacity to produce globally acceptable quality at globally comparable cost. I think with this, I will leave all our viewers, friends. I want to thank all the panelists. Thanks Selby and Ganeshan again. Good luck and God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. May I request Mr. Sanjay Mehta, DDG IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to please address the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Selby. It's a great food of thought of 1.5 hours, and I don't think I need anything for lunch today.
I'm feeling
lot
hungry.
of positive things, a lot of thoughts have come across. Uh, uh, I am not, because it's a great food for thought today. And I must say that all our panelists and of course Mr. Chandrasekhar have shared with us a lot of wisdom, a lot of ideas about agriculture. And what I want to say is that Mr. Chandrasekhar, in his concluding remark, was talking about health food is going to get a lot of traction, and which is true, because if we read the estimates, world around, the junk food has dropped down to 70%. The sale of McDonald's and things like that. And so people are getting more and more conscious. Eating at home for 60 days have taught them what is the value of nutrition and what is the disadvantages of junk food. So that is the positive outcome of COVID-19. And we have always talked about, the supply chain of iPhones and car components. They are wonderful. But if you see during COVID-19, the food system supply chain has been so resilient. And as I told in the beginning, before the start of the program, that it is because of that a lot of suffering, which would have been more and more nightmares if food had not reached the plates of the people. But food has reached the plate. And as our panelists have all are unanimous that we should remain in the global trade system. Yes, we should, because the 2007 and 8 experience that Mr. Chandrasekhar talked about is not only India, but was everywhere, where they raised protectionism, where they raised tariffs and banned exports, and there were food riots, which has not happened because it has still been a free movement of food and all. So excellent, all those suggestions that have come. And from IMC, I would like to assure that whatever comes from the associations, we will compile it and send it to the government of India and also the Maharashtra government. All these suggestions, I would request our panelists, Mr. Girish Brahmabat and Mr. Praveen Dongre, to please send it to us, and we will compile it and send it to the government of India. With that, I would like to thank our panelist, Mr. Praveen Dongre, founder, chairman of India Pulse and Grain Association, Mr. Girish Brahmabat, honorary chairman of India Spice and Foodstuff Association. It is unfortunate that we could not get the wisdom from Mr. C.B. Singh, but it will always be the next time, because this is not the only one we are going to host on agriculture, because agriculture is a very, very important component of India's GDP. So we will have more of such. Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Brahmabat, Mr. Dongre, Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, our own IMC. We have always shared our wisdom while getting up on the lift every day, or when we meet during the office hours. So thank you very much, Mr. Chandrasekhar, and of course, Girish, as Mr. Ganeshan, as Mr. Chandrasekhar said, that he is the one who needs a lot of applaud, and I also applaud
Yes,
him.
of course.
Thank you.
And our own IT team led by Selvi,
Yes.
a very, very, very smiling and great host. So thank you, overall a great program, and we will see you again soon. And all the participants who are there for joining us, and please do keep your eyes open for such programs, and do join us. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.